It all begins with a single phone call. A phone call that, on the surface, might seem ordinary, but in reality, carried the weight of two souls, two hearts, and years of silence, distance, and unresolved emotions. For Yaman and Demet Özdemir, the love story that millions of fans around the world followed with passion was never truly finished. Yes, the camera stopped rolling, the lights of the set dimmed, and life seemed to move forward. But in the private corners of their hearts, something never fully ended. And when that secret call finally happened, it shook their worlds in ways no one could have imagined. Demet had been living her life with strength and determination, showing the world her usual smile, her elegance, and her professional side. She worked tirelessly, moving from one project to another, proving herself as one of Turkey's brightest stars. But late at night, when the lights were off and the world was quiet, her heart whispered the same unanswered questions. Did he still think about me? Did he ever regret walking away? Can, on the other hand, had built an empire of fame abroad. Italy adored him, fans surrounded him wherever he went, and his career seemed unstoppable. Yet behind the glamorous photos, the magazine covers, and the endless interviews, there was a man who carried a heavy burden, the memory of a woman he once loved with all his heart. The distance between them wasn't just geographical, it was emotional, filled with pride, misunderstandings, and things left unsaid. And then came that night. Demet's phone lit up with a number she hadn't seen in a long time. Her heart skipped a beat, her hands trembled, and she hesitated. Was it really him? Why now? After all these years, after so much silence? She answered, her voice calm but trembling underneath. On the other side of the line, it was Can. His tone was deeper, more mature, but filled with a vulnerability she immediately recognized. He didn't start with small talk. There were no formalities. His first words cut straight into her soul. I never stopped loving you. Demet froze. She couldn't breathe. The room around her disappeared, and all she could hear was the sound of his voice echoing through the line. Years of emotions, hidden tears, and unspoken truths suddenly flooded back. She wanted to respond, but her lips refused to move. For Can, this confession wasn't rehearsed. It wasn't planned. It came from a place of raw honesty, from the weight he had been carrying for too long. And in that moment, the secret phone call turned into the key that could change everything, not just for them, but for everyone who had followed their story from the very beginning. Demet sat still on the edge of her bed, her phone pressed tightly against her ear. She could hear the sound of his breathing, shaky and uneven, almost as if he had run out of strength before even dialing her number. For years, she had rehearsed this moment in her mind. What she would say, how she would react if he ever came back into her life. But now that it was happening, she found herself speechless. Why are you telling me this now, Can? She finally whispered, her voice breaking. There was silence on the other end. A silence heavy enough to reveal everything he couldn't put into words. And then, almost in a confession-like tone, Ken replied, because I couldn't carry it anymore. I've tried to live without you, Demet, but every road, every success, every applause, it all felt empty without you. Tears rolled down Demet's face, even though she tried to stay composed. His words pierced through her defenses, tearing down the walls she had built over the years. She remembered the night she cried herself to sleep, wondering if he still thought of her. And here he was, admitting it out loud, raw and vulnerable, across a fragile phone line. The world around them kept moving. Outside, the city was alive, cars honked, people laughed, lights flickered. But for Demet and Can, time had frozen. This call was more than a conversation, it was an earthquake that shook everything they thought they knew about their lives. Do you realize what you're saying? Demet asked, her tone trembling. You're opening wounds that I've spent years trying to heal. Do you want me to go through all of that pain again? I know, Ken admitted, his voice heavy with regret. And I don't deserve forgiveness. But I needed you to know the truth. I couldn't go another day pretending I moved on. Because I didn't. Her heart screamed for him. Deep inside, she wanted to tell him that she felt the same, that not a single day had passed without his name crossing her mind. But she was also afraid. Afraid of the same cycle repeating, of the heartbreak, of the public scrutiny, of the people who would never let them live peacefully. Still, something in his voice was different. He wasn't the man who had once left with pride and silence. He sounded broken, real, and desperate for a second chance. And that made her chest tighten with emotions she couldn't control. Demet closed her eyes and whispered, "What do you want from me, Can?" The line went quiet again, but this time, she could feel his heart speaking before his lips moved. And when his answer came, it was the most vulnerable she had ever heard him, "Just one chance to prove that I never stopped loving you, and that I never will." Demet's heart was pounding so hard that she thought he could hear it through the phone. His words had cut her open like a knife, but at the same time, they lit a fire she thought was long gone. She had dreamed of hearing those exact words countless times, but now that they were real, they terrified her. She stood up and walked slowly across her apartment, holding the phone as if it were the only thing keeping her from falling. Her voice was faint when she asked, "And what if it's too late, Can? What if I don't believe you anymore?" On the other side of the line, Can closed his eyes. He leaned against the wall of his dimly lit apartment in Rome, one hand gripping the phone, the other covering his face. He had imagined her reaction 1,000 times too, but nothing prepared him for the pain in her voice. "It's never too late when the love never died," he whispered. "I know I broke us, Demet. I know I let pride, distance, and silence destroy what we had. But if you look me in the eyes again, even for a moment, you'll know I'm telling the truth." Demet bit her lip, fighting back tears. She hated how much power his words still had over her. She hated that after everything, one phone call was enough to bring her back to that place where her heart belonged to him, completely. "You don't understand," she said firmly, though her voice cracked. "My life changed. I tried to move on. People expect me to be strong. If I let you in again, everyone will judge. Everyone will say I was a fool." "Let them talk," Ken interrupted, his tone suddenly stronger. "They've always talked. They never lived what we lived. They don't know what it feels like to love you, to lose you, and to wake up every morning regretting it. I don't care what the world thinks, Demet. I only care about you." Her hand shook so badly that she almost dropped the phone. She pressed it against her chest, her tears flowing freely now. She wanted to scream, to tell him how much she had suffered, how much she had longed for this moment. But another part of her still carried anger. The anger of unanswered calls, of nights waiting for him, of the silence that had killed her more than any cruel word could. "Why didn't you call me sooner?" she asked, her voice breaking. "Do you know how many times I needed you? How many times I begged the universe for you to reach out?" Ken swallowed hard, his throat tightening. "Because I was a coward. Because I thought I could bury my feelings under fame, success, and distance. But tonight, I couldn't take it anymore. Tonight, I needed you to know that every song, every line I ever wrote, every look I gave in interviews, it was all about you." Her knees grew weak, and she sank into the couch, clutching the phone like a lifeline. She closed her eyes, letting his confession echo in her soul. And for the first time in years, Demet felt like the world around her didn't exist, only his voice, only their story, only the possibility that maybe, just maybe, their love wasn't over. The silence between them stretched, heavy and full of memories. Demet could hear her own breathing, fast and uneven, as she pressed the phone harder against her ear. She wanted to believe him, but believing him also meant opening the door to everything she had tried to lock away for years. "Ken," she finally whispered, her voice trembling, "you can't just come back into my life with one phone call and expect me to forget the past." "I don't want you to forget it," he said softly, almost desperately. "I want you to remember it. All of it. The good and the bad. Because even in the worst moments, I never stopped loving you. That's the truth I can't hide anymore." Demet's tears blurred her vision, but she didn't wipe them away. Instead, she let them fall freely, like a weight she had been carrying for too long. She thought of the nights when she had cried herself to sleep, clutching her phone, hoping it would ring. And now, after all the waiting, it finally had. "You hurt me," she said, her voice breaking. "You left me with silence when I needed words. You left me with emptiness when I needed love." On the other side, Can's voice cracked. "And I'll regret that for the rest of my life. But if you give me even the smallest chance, I'll spend every day proving that I'm not the man who left, I'm the man who came back because he couldn't breathe without you." Her heart screamed at her to say yes, but her mind fought back. What if it was too late? What if this love had already turned into something broken beyond repair? And yet, deep inside, she knew the truth, she had never stopped loving him either. "Then show me," she whispered, almost inaudible. "Show me that this call wasn't just words. Show me that you mean it." Can's voice was firm now, filled with determination. "I will. I'll fly to you tomorrow. No cameras, no press, no audience, just me and you. If you let me, I'll stand in front of you and tell you everything I couldn't say for years." Demet closed her eyes and pressed the phone against her lips, her tears falling like rivers. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to imagine it, seeing him again, hearing him not through a phone line but face to face, feeling the intensity that had once set both of their souls on fire. The call ended not with closure, but with a promise. A promise that the story of Can and Demet was not finished, that perhaps destiny had been waiting all this time to bring them back together. And as Demet lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling, her heart whispered what her lips were too afraid to say: "I never stopped loving you either." The secret phone call had changed everything. And nothing, from that night on, would ever be the same.